Hello, this is news regarding news. Hello, species value nature system. This is regarding, for example, border security. We need to add identity of grounds, relationship to body of value discernment and progressive value discernment, security. Since the founding of our nation, left entrenched by the recorded fact cheapening nature slavery of our founders and their recorded identity thefts, left entrenched was that grounded means to maintain what is called policy with physical delusions, uncharged, criminally foreign influence sciences, all victim predators for what forgiveness was about. And this is about, this is theory, but this is more than theory. I mean, I could prove this, but you can't force people to listen to. Also, facts is being used with physical delusions because there is exception. There's an identity that makes inventions work or not in relationship to itself, and then it makes them further positive or negative or not in relationship to itself. And this is the Trinities. For example, sexes. Why sexes are manifest with living, with animal living, with heart beating, living, nature, quality of diffusion. Note the rest of nature has no criminal foreign influences. It's affected by us. We're in a negative identity of negative value nature progression. There's an identity that generated the ground. Before something could collide, it had to be generated. And this is science about the everything nature, demonstrably. Every value is expanding value. It's expanding nature of volume. This is only the extent of it is debatable. We're from a value that was here before us. If you believe in Christianity, we're Trinity also. And a little bit semi-nature of value that stays onto it. And a little bit more at the end, we're a value. See, there are three natures of invisible but still discernible. Value, bonded, nature of relationship. Each complete identity of value is simultaneously an unceasing semi-nature relationship to what is the cause of positive or negative value nature progressions. Before the Santa Claus is about, see, when Jesus Christ says he is the Alpha and he is the Omega, that means he is a value simultaneously to what the Alpha value is, and what the Omega value is, and what the semi-nature coming with them is with that, as a quality of diffusion that is positive or negative value nature progression to the identity that will only stay everything complete identity onto its identity of hierarchy, like all the complete identities of our body, like each cell, each system, each organ, each body part. They have simultaneously a distinct sequence and simultaneously a non-distinct sequence. They share the sequence nature, which the value of sequence nature is that it contains simultaneous nature value relationship. See what revelation is? When you just understand something. Because you see it, you know where it is everywhere. In other words, our nature has a complete nature of relationship to itself, or semi-nature. And semi-nature is in demonstration of where complete nature is. So when they have Market's position, what we say modified by Market's position, the media is being led by private police, sources, interbranch, retired and standing, already criminally foreign influenced, with their fact treatments in cases, with sequence nature treatments. See, then to deny that and pretend other, you have to keep moving forward and keep making people make opinions. And only allowed to share facts as trained to do so by campuses, not by accident. Many nations shared at once, policing not allowed to talk about it originally and still. Where and how our fact treatment nature has an identity bonded onto it, the value of it. That these market positions value are tactical ulterior from. So you let that drive the value of our fact treatment nature and what is timeless. It's going to continue to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. Acts like predicate acts. Natures like criminal insidiousness nature. Victim predators. Recorded fake sides. To the maintenance of means to hide that because they've been exploiting it. Nations individually, grouped, and together, not for good for them, as child abused. Each individual, grouped together progressively, sequentially. Identity theft racket, sequence shift racket, names forging, switching, not letting people get taken identity to ground to what maintained original still, never ceased. Negative value nature progressions from each database, from each suit and tie title, each value of identity, of titles, of jobs, all tactically ulterior from the identity nature's course that each cell of our body has, that each invention is going to work positive or negative in relationship to, that each, and again, be further, but this health is in relationship to this. The identity that is tactically ulterior that needs so that's sense of that's with physical delusions juxtaposed with uncharged criminal foreign influences, because everyone blamed their causes on other things, on others, and on self. The identity of the ground, its relationship to the bonded, to the bonded, invisible, but three natures of invisible, but still discernible body of value, discernment. And see, that's our physical bodies are value as nature. Now, so the alphabet, little rap guy and friends are going to teach you. The alphabet is to show you this, to show you how the physical bodies of the letters has life's value coming in it, with death's value bonded to it. There is only complete nature from this perspective, from this science. This is a quality of fact treatment nature that is completely run by this identity that makes inventions work or not in relationship to it. Again, further positive or not in relationship to it. Again, as health is. So, same thing. It's like fixing the body of the. It's an identity of the identities of the ground, our value. This everything is an identity of relationship to itself and the value of that, positive or negative, in relationship to what was already a perfect value progression, self-generating since before matter. That's most logical. See, each of the sciences are worse than obfuscating, but also obfuscating what is really expert understanding, which is really correlation nature, which is a trinity, three natures of volume, which we could demonstrate. That's why we have each individual can't help but being grouped. Value in value of that, which is a shared value in relationship to a little bit more of a semi-nature coming in as our value, as the value of our kids, as the value of our elderly, as the value of everything distinctly and non-distinctly, so we can see what is non-distinctly and distinctly positive or negative to its value progression system perfect. You admit that's a nature of correlation. This is where prayer is science, because you're taking the time to discern the difference between what is true always as exception nature, as all exceptions, and what is not. And that's where you see the hierarchy of identity, which is not like physics, which is semi. Like if I put dye into water, now it's a increasing volume, but this is increasing everywhere it is. A little bit more of itself, a little bit more of the complete identity of relationship to itself that makes the simultaneous nature have the value. And that's the force that causes positive value nature progressions, evolution, and its fruits, or it forces it away from here, our value. And that value as us, as identity nature, Leith of Hades. So we have the maintenance, the suit and tie nations, counters of them in markets, positions, tactically ulterior from the quality of fact, treatment nature that is science, and that is free speech, and that is needed to defend religion. We have religions there and here, fake sides per crime method as victim predators, but as predators, formally. Not because they're as sensibilities either juxtapose fake care and worse than indifferent hurt conviction natures. A quality of fact treatment natures forced on presidents when President Trump, chief is the important title, because what is really true always, as exception nature true too, is completely native. That's value, identity nature. So the numbers are about metaphysics. The numbers in the letters in our complete identity is simultaneously an unceasing semi-nature. As value individually, inseparably, that means value to the group, which is slash sexes. It's also group. This is how this is science. When there's group, it's omega. If there's a bunch of guys and one girl, in other words, in relationship to that, but we'll get into this. This is per correlation. I didn't read this, but that individual girl will be alpha, because it has nothing to do with physical difference. It's got to do with the difference that is physical, metaphysical, and it is where and how we have every complete nature. It's simultaneously an unceasingly increasingly valuable semi-nature relationship to the perfect value progression. The identity of value that generated, the identity of value progression, self-generating, because it had to come from nowhere to generate something to be able to collide into itself, which I'm not even bringing that into a collision. The bond is self-generating. Because that identity of ground we come back to, that's only a semi-nature of it, the border. That's only a semi-nature care for notions of care for the immigrants, political tools as victim predators. In relationship to what was here sick, organized crime methods since before our founders' births, left by them for us for this free speech. We don't have it. We have identity theft branches. They've been this. This is recorded. If you say this, they just provide more and more things into databases. Because this is recorded originally and still exploiting each type of expert. This originally bonded all kinds of natures of crime roles, specifically for that, to help want them to get away with it, to make them, to everyone from a tactically denatured relationship to nature that no one had control over. This is what uses reality. That's only because it's a sick reality. It's an identity of negative value nature progression. All criminal seriousness natures. Forced. This is what beat people. So that's what we're going to do too, because it's my idea, and I condone the idea. We're going to make it industry. This for pantheism though. So we have to do it areas, states, nation. And we have to do it, any nation that wants to, and which ones don't. This is where we're begging you, because this is our common longing. A perfect value progression system, tactically ulterior, from it. We have to admit that. Just to admit that is to be an identity of nature that has a relationship to itself. That is what the Santa Claus is about. Where and as and how. St. Nicholas and the church didn't have free speech. Each branch of government didn't have free speech. The sick, crazy prisons, imagine, because they have to cover their lie progressions. Everyone can't discern, because we have a quality of fact treatment nature. The sciences that are tactically degraded since semi-ancient times. People who point out the exceptions that show that sciences have evolved are not using correlation nature without physical delusions and without criminal foreign influences, without victim predator quality of fact treatment nature, premise treatment, sequence treatment. Excuse me. For example, in relationship to the nature. Nature never stopped going downhill since before our founders' births. This was a tactically denatured landscape. They used everything to keep it. And then even, forget about the cities, tactically denatured. Everything else is landscape theater. Not means. So one thing we can do too is where we have zoning laws, agreements, and things like that, because they're different natures of industries, we can absorb the populations of the world with no homes. And we could afford a means, to agree to be able to do, we can agree to make reliefs for things that, in other words, we're locked into a slavery system. Worse than slavery system. Because what is slavery? A whole bunch of things bonded. When they say slavery, that's the facsimile nature slavery of our founders. They put color in there, black and white, all different little minority from each nation took over they criminally re-engineered the original nature of internation sciences, which areas in state sciences originally valued rightfully. Because that's how they realized. We are a trinity. There are 3 dimensions. And then this trinity has a value/value nature relationship to itself. Inside value/values nature relationship that the perfect value progression has to itself. And even the Quran, I didn't read this part in the Quran, I read the part up to the point where you could debate. But with Islam is saying about 100 names of Allah. In other words, this is about, you're supposed to, about, the first part says about unbelievers are supposed to be valued. It's only the unbelievers who are criminal insidiousness nature, who say that, but insidiously lie. This is because states and areas are forced in collusion. Forced hundreds of nations as natures of industries, of sciences, therefore of justifications of them, value of those justifications, ill premise treatment natures, ill sequence treatment natures, ill body of value discernment natures, ill progression value discernment natures, ill identity theft racket natures, ill sequence shifting racket natures. And write other into databases. This is database illusion stacking crime rolls. Forced. Crazy laws before our founders were born, already entrenched here. Nation's supposed to be a face. Because no one knew. Colonists A through Z, and even nations A through Z. Even kings. They had no idea. This knew that if they could build modern nations from semi-ancient time, they could build the phenomenon of what are now modern nations, defending states and areas roles with tactically criminally re-engineered sciences, self-obfuscated, valued pseudo-experts, real experts, knowledge knowing the most, but hurting correlation nature's means to demonstrate their actually recorded natures. So we can come together here. We could just switch the colors. And that's, forget about it. We do it as a science. And it's completely owned by the ground. And then we have a base. We know has to go. Be better. And we also, this is a simultaneous nature problem. So we have to be able to anticipate progressive, and we have to be able to, impositions. We have to be able to discern the offensive breaching method, organized crime method. I'm not a lawyer, not a policeman, not a criminal, thank God. Because that's what this is about. Also, criminal uses of lawyers for fake signs of fact nature. In this method that bonds all to roles as lie progression cover-up natures, as styles of lying. Pretending facts to mean what they don't. Pretending that's the only way to think. They're valuing criminal insidiousness nature only going into each science. Valued as an identity of relationship to the ground through nations facilitated to this originally still per a method that knew that it could keep this, and it's recorded how, but you need the free speech. Fake news stole my identity to a fake conversation that wasn't at all. Sequence shifting, worse, because then they did worse before that, and then they did that pretend they didn't realize that. So I never got a chance to speak. And the courts did that too, forging names, switching sequences. Because they were also online, Facebook, using that interbranch for all kinds of natures of crimes, even sexual, and even involving school campuses, Facebook pages, and the police departments. Police departments forging names, switching names. No. Because then they're preventing people a means to ground counters to what recorded they sustain as only let realize jobs of the law, identities of the law, criminally foreign influence. Worst, delusions raw. Victim predators needed to hide life progressions with the overt criminal enterprises, not by accident. And they're not just individual criminal enterprises. The criminal enterprises are being maintained to maintain each area and state of each modern nation criminally foreign influence, but not by one. Specifically, as a method to keep all blaming each other, blaming other things for the causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Acts like predicate acts. Natures like criminal insidiousness natures, like wrongdoers. Like they are when they bring up what they believe is legitimate integrity, when they mention terms like values. Words are values as nature. Words like legislation. We're an identity of negative value nature progression. Each modern nation, we have this to face. All we have to do is admit it. Then we're the nature that the Santa Claus is about. It's about the nature of the law. It's about its identity of relationship to itself. And it's about the value of that, which is going to be to the perfection of a little bit more of the only let realize perfect value progression positive that's going to keep us evolution in its fruits, its gifts, and its value as nature, or it's going to take it away because we're not following its system, which is value to the identity that is the order to the finite. So it is therefore discernible. The smallest things of our body. And then see finite in the word the definite article. Definite, finite. A and an are the indefinite articles. Indefinite. These are value as nature. The is always value as nature. A and an, so we'll come to this. The prepositions, value transfer, which is only semi-nature value. So what's it in demonstration of? The complete identity, and its complete identity of relationship to itself. So there are three natures of invisible, but still discernible nature. That's why the value, their value progression is simultaneous. And as what is simultaneously more and more value here, we think animals came out of nowhere. This is an identity of relationship to itself. We just have to care about having more than caring about everyone the way left. That's what it with we have to think like Native Americans. The Native Americans, I can't find where they say on YouTube. Why I heard on YouTube, when I ever find it, a Native American said they all say that, a lot of them say that, if not all. I mean, that we should read their dreams. And that's so wise. Whoever said that. But it's more than that. We should read their soul. Because it's more than that. We are a volume of nature, identity of nature. The reason we are a species is per science value progression course perfect. That these are all tactical ulterior from. And so we can see the nature of a volume as a trinity. Inside values nature. Like our identity is values nature. The trinity of a cell inside of our body is a cell nucleus, a cell body, and a cell wall. And then it's connected to the other cell walls. We have body of value discernment shown to the eyes. Living bodies of value. Life has body of value. Then we have the heartbeat with the living life. The one identity of value couldn't be its identity as a semi-nature, as two semi-natures. But and then it was so I don't know. So I have to think about this, how to word this better. But I'm gonna make it like a heartbeat. It's like the ancients must have thought about it because of what we talked about before. How there's we're a semi nature of value before we are this Trinity in this active phase. This is active body of value discernment unceasingly. This is how each identity of value, individually, together, and all together. I mean, grouped and all together, are in relationship to when identity is identity of relationship to itself. This is the course that is in demonstration to us all ways at once. And this is a course that realizes that this is using the identity of that is value before before the identity of the ground. The semi as that perfect progression. Then as the identity of the ground, the bond. Then as the identity of the active body of value, quality of diffusion we are. Unceasingly. We're gaining the value of a forever nature that is positive or negative. And what shows it is how this causes positive value nature progressions here using the identity of the ground. Water, our relationship to water, things, means to it. Value nature system that can afford to. Not by accident, we can't, everything, it's valued now, tactically denatured relationships to nature, infrastructure since before cars. Not because there's not enough space. Not because we can't afford means. Because, there is one expert. This is the expert, the identity that causes inventions to work or not, health to be health or not, and further, positive or not. The criminal insidious nature is a positive that is not really positive, and that's being exploited. That's being exploited. So it's more than about being good. It's about being this science true always, and not denying the slightest exception. Because it's also important. That's how we know when we're look at it this way too. The Quran and the Old Testament. The or the other versions of it, because the same thing, the other versions of it are taking out of context what the Old Testament says. This is the most important part right here about the sciences. And it's about sequence nature. It's about the value of sequence nature. If you say we don't understand it, we'll come together and understand, because the sciences share an identity. Ratiocination and pseudo-ratiocination, they have this identity they share simultaneously. The predicate of English is simultaneously inherently, actively, and progressively the main verb of a sentence. That's positive. That's positive identity. The predicate act of the law simultaneously, it's a demonstration of a simultaneously, inherently, actively, and progressively negative value nature relationship to oneself, which is, again, as a relationship, as a semi-nature relationship to an identity of value that was already and is gaining value since before, while ours is being, and as the cause of our being, as the value of its our being's progression, and as the value of the unceasing sequence, positive or negative, further. No, heaven and hell came from this science. So, if we could be a nature of science that is trying to be what is positive to and as the order of the finite, as active body of value discernment of a quality of fact treatment nature that's not pretending that facts, they're not permitting mandated law. Various natures of courts are recorded, confessed, and are demonstrated with their police crimes on and off campuses, leading up to the Trade Center attack context and since, and facilitated to needs to do that and rolls with it by other nations there and here. All knaves with counters. Everyone's blaming others, other things on themselves, for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And those line progressions are inside the negative value nature progressions that the devil and organized crime method, not a ghost, but that no one had free speech. Not only did they not have free speech, their identities were going to be stolen no matter what. Every formal title is tied to a database already criminally foreign influenced. I mean, already a tool, not just for it there, but from the live progressions that were in the live progression cover up natures, needs, and styles of hiding those natures, pretending not to be positive anyway. That's what the suit and tie, the counters to it, are maintained. Not realizing what is simultaneously sickly distinctly hurting each modern nation per a method that already made everyone value the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures on blamed on other things. Boxings. Lost course returns. So then this is a method that is not that is asking nations like Russia and like China to be able to afford together means to fix all the how we had to play forward from a tactically denatured relationship to nature, fake unities, fact cheating nature phenomena, not by accident, valuing difference to discern the integrity of positive, theater positive, only like realized, only capable of justifying where and how it has to lie. It has to keep her correlation to each are simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means. Each age of it, they're keeping our kids distinctly and non-distinctly hurt each age on and off campuses. This is tied to the phenomenon of the school shootings because this is phases in the negative value nature progression maintained, progression roles maintained, specifically to maintain the negative the line progressions, and the line progression corrupt natures and styles needs nature then to defend that, like in other words. So we can't have fake news stealing our identities. Then you go into court and they're forging names, switching names. There were crimes and cases before that, sticking fake arresting officers into databases. These are people involved with Trade Center predicate acts. They're drug cliques also tied to the courts. Crimes with doctors, with the recorded, confessed, demonstrated, with forging names, switching names, doctors, crimes with their patients, with overt criminal enterprises. Drug crimes is the child offender crimes where they're the only natures of counters. Women private, women interbranch. Forging names, switching, because they need to have their line progressions. They need to have what they were facilitated to with offensive evidence reception rackets in the background, on off CCSU, on off Trinity College, with predicate acts too. Mail crimes, wire crime methods. They start a lot of fights. These people too, because of the way we had no we have no integrity, and we have the way we have the identity of the ground, like with these criminal justice colleges. Puerto Rico, whether they're a territory, so it's not there's a fact cheating racket though. They're the same. They're all like Mexico, Puerto Rico, America, Canada, all these nations with the criminal justice. They're sick in their heads and souls. They've been lying in cases against innocents and against people that they can't put what actually happens. These are sustained predators against each age of fact cheating nature roles because they maintain the identity of each campus. And this is an identity. Everything is an identity of relationship to this value as nature. Perfect value progression. So, if we could be positive to the order of the finite, the order of the active body of value, simultaneous nature appreciation, as what is to discern what is only true, always as exception too. This is for the discernment of the identity that both ratiocination and pseudo-ratiocination share that is greater than it. This is how we could perceive how there is the recorded order to the finite, the smallest thing, like of our body, of our species, nature, of volume. Order to the grouped nature of value, inseparable from that little semi-nature of us that was here before us too, through our parents. And then the species nature of volume. When we're positive for all three of those natures of volume too at once, using the rest of nature with no criminal foreign influences as correlation nature, why? For the progressive part. What is going to be progressively positive? Stacking people in concrete? Teaching them about physical culture, not this invisible but clear culture. This is what's positive. Physical culture is only valued because it has this nature in it. I'll drop the force. Bach sings. It tells us things. I'll tell you things. Prepare your souls. So we have passions, vicious, as the ones that are, we'll let the courts decide. Let the courts are recorded originally and still. Delusions raw, criminally foreign influenced. And worse, as victim predators. They can't defend themselves and follow the rules. So they tell everyone to see experts that have everyone separate natures of crime that are inseparable. These are identity theft rackets sustained against everyone. Everyone maintained the roles, recorded how motivated to it, how maintained it originally and still. That's not reality. That's reality at the hands of the person holding the whip, the cracker. See, omitting these things is for the discernment and for the admission of, for the gaining value. Now we're overcoming it because we're admitting it, and we have a means to. We can organize, and we can afford so much money because everyone wants to counter slavery, and everyone wants to help New York out of what takes a whole industry about that to do it, and to train the other cities, not just of our nation. Each modern nation is in a pathology of infrastructure recorded that was fact, cheating nature, slavery of each modern nation's founders, including our own. That's why Mao Zedong doesn't want us to talk about him, because he didn't have free speech. He knew they were going to steal his, they have to, because everyone's forced to alliances that are fake sides, cultivated non-distinctly, sickly distinctly, so everyone could not discern how non-distinctly. Each nation, each state, each area, each individual grouped together progressively and sequentially. We're in a trap. Now one must wrap. So when we do that, when we're trying to be that nature of correlation nature, that's where prayer is science. Because we're using on three actual natures of volume and correlatively, in other words. What's going to cause evolution? We're trying to be that nature comes. See native drums appear. The means are clear. One way alone. The rest to seize. Leave of IDs. Criminal ceases nature is clear too. So we have to have I'll tell no lies. This is what we'll come to even if he didn't want to leave us a message like that. But there was proof that George Washington, our founders, needed to say they didn't have free speech. They were fact-cheating nature slaves. They're going to steal their identities. So that's why they had to leave overt slavery with color and no means to explain it better. He chopped down the cherry tree to get us into a nation, won a revolutionary war, only to force England they were forced, if they didn't play the role here as a fake face here with other nations, because this is for impression, but that was for a whole bunch of other um, needs. Was they put overt criminal enterprises because they made criminal branches and they knew they would need to hide the lies, the same finite active body of value discernment, progressive lies, identity theft lies, sequence shift lies. With the overt criminal enterprises, with themselves, with everybody, because their identity of the ground, with all database relationships since before computers. It only hurts to not admit it. Then it only stays negative value nature progression is a demonstration of it. All lie progressions in there. All lie progression cover up natures and styles of fact-achieving nature. Preventing free speech is means by simultaneously inherent active and progressive means even greater. By the identity of a science, actual. By the identity of logic, actual. You guys are sick with psychology, too. Right in our faces, preventing free speech. Pretending your news. Leveraged against the president. You guys are in collusion with overt criminal enterprises, private and interbranch federal crimes, preventing mandated law to report crime acts, abuses of kids, of all natures of them. Here. So means appear. So subscribe to the YouTube channel of Anthony Wall, Romulus Wall, Romulus Magnella. YouTube.com/user/Romulus Wall, because they didn't have Anthony Wall. You know. Cheers, because there's the Anthony Wall who's already has the name. Whereas I don't know if it's another YouTuber, but there's also a famous Anthony Wall from Ireland. So big, no hate, same name too, Anthony Wall. So I hope you're still playing golf. I hope you had a good career. Reportedly a great golfer from